We are live. Welcome everyone to the Feel Inspired podcast. My name is Amit Sodha, the founder of this amazing podcast, and I've got another incredible guest today. For anyone who missed it, by the way, I had Daniel on my last episode, and if you haven't heard it or haven't seen it, please do go make sure you go check it out. We're talking about dating after divorce. And today's episode, I'm sure, is going to be just as exhilarating, if not even more. But before I introduce my guest, just a reminder that this podcast came about because I wanted to inspire people in the same way that I've been inspired in my life by, the books I've read or the videos I've heard or the podcasts I've heard or whatever it might be. And I wanted to recreate some of that for all you lovely people out there. And today's, again, we're addressing the topic of dating, but also subconscious blocks as well. So we'll have a two-prong attack on this one as well. But something interesting and different to discuss today, which is attachment styles, which it's not something I've personally discussed on my podcast before. So today, and as Flora described herself, she is the attachment style horse. she is the
self-described.
Yeah, self-described. Self-described. Not what just I call them, just to clarify. So she is definitely the expert on the subject, so we can speak to her more about this. But yeah, in the meantime, though, if you're tuning in live to this right now, please do put a comment up. I can see the comments on the side. So if you've got any questions or anything like that to Flora, if I can get my words out for Flora, please put them up. We'll definitely address them. And if you're watching the replay, do not worry. I'll make sure that I have all of Flora's details up as well so that you can connect with her should you want to as well. So anyway, without further ado, let me introduce this amazing guest. She's an incredible dating coach. Her name is Flora. You can see her Instagram name is up there. It's Redo Love if you want to find her on Instagram. But welcome to the show, Flora. It's a pleasure to have you.
Yeah, I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, we said we were going to do this ages ago, actually, and we ended up putting off just a little bit, but I'm glad we've been able to do it now. So without, let's start here, actually. I always like to start just to get to know a bit about my guests, a bit more about them. So I'd love to know, because I think every dating coach's journey to get to a point of being a dating coach is quite interesting. So I'd love to know, what led you to this point? What led you to pursue this path, become and do what you are doing right now? And the areas that you kind of tackle and deal with on a daily basis, and some of the challenges, personal challenges you had that's brought you to this point as well. So I'd love to hear your kind of backstory in a summary as well. Take as long as you need though, so we can get a better idea of who you are.
Well, it all began when I was born.
I love it.
Funny enough, that's true, but we'll get to that part later. Firstly, can I say how beautiful your teeth are? I had never, we became affiliated on Clubhouse. And so I never really properly saw you, but you have a beautiful smile. So I just wanted
to ladies and gentlemen, I didn't even pay her to say that. So I am so grateful. Thank you so much for that.
How did I get into this work? I was a mess. I got divorced, and I started to date thinking, like everybody else does, that I'll just go out there, I'll meet people, and eventually I'll find somebody that I'll settle down with, and life will go on, and I'll get a house with the guy and with my kids and all the whole thing, and none of that happened. I started dating, and I was having fun because I think most people after divorce that get into the dating scene, especially if they've never seen the dating apps before, it's kind of like discovering a new world. And some people are kind of.
Daniel and I were talking about that as well. That just,
exactly.
If you've been out of the game for 10, 15 years, then it is a real shock to the system.
It is. And some people have fun with it. And I was one of those people that, was like really excited about it. And I thought it was super fun. But at the same time, I was also very disappointed constantly and very dejected and very, and I started to notice these patterns. And the pattern was that I was really falling for people that didn't deserve even my attention, let alone for me to fall in love with them or to, have feelings for them like I did. And after about like the fifth guy, I really just started to feel like I was absolutely crazy. I started to feel like there was something wrong with me. Like I'd pursue, and not only was I pursuing, but it felt like I was like I had compulsions. Like I would see the mistakes that I was making. I knew I was doing, like, I shouldn't do the thing, like text the guy the 50th time kind of thing, but slight exaggeration, but I couldn't stop myself, and until I found when I found attachment theory and the attachment style conversation, I felt like everything became clear to me. Like it was like the heavens opened up and they were like, here's the answer, and then everything made sense. And that, while that was, like the biggest mind opener for me, it also led me down the road to understand my subconscious and kind of the subconscious implications of everything that we do, and how we function. And I feel like now, not only do I have, but I also teach kind of, it's almost like a mapping of your how our thoughts, personality, behaviors, actions are formed from the day that you're born, even before the day that you're born, all the way through to how you act and function now. Now, it's not to say you can always control it, but it's like I completely understand it. And so yeah, that's how I came here.
Lovely. And by the way, so when you said you obviously got divorced, so how long were you married until up until the point that you got divorced? How long were you married for?
14. So I married when I was 24. And then I was married 14 years, had never seen a dating app, and hadn't dated a lot either.
Gotcha. And then how long was it that you were on those dating apps, and how long were you floating around for?
I mean, I'm still there. No, but it's 6 years now.
6 years. No, you don't look in your 40s, not at all. No, you look like you're 21 anyway, so it's absolutely fine.
I mean, I make the joke. I make the joke that I got married when I was 24. I was married for 14 years. I didn't grow at all as a person within my marriage. I was completely stagnant emotionally and mentally. And now I've been divorced for 6 years. So essentially, I'm 30.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, if you do the math,
the math. Yeah, I was just calculating in my head as well. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So what was your first take when you got back into dating and you came across the dating apps? Because I did as well. I was engaged for a while, and then I got back into dating around 2014, early 2015. And at that time, things like Plenty of Fish and Tinder were around, and there was a couple of others as well. I know you've got newer ones with like Hinge and Bumble and so forth. And at that time, I remember Tinder as well. That was the golden age of Tinder as well, where you had unlimited swipes, so you didn't have to pay for these extra swipes, so you used to love it. But actually, my dating experience when I got back into dating at that point wasn't that bad. And I think because I'd already, got comfortable with myself and I was enjoying the dating process. It wasn't such a chore. I actually really enjoyed it. I didn't really have that many bad experiences to talk about, maybe one or two, that's about it. But what was it like? What was it for you that took you by surprise? Like, what kind of got you off guard? What was it like for you? And from a woman's perspective as well, like, being back out there after not being on there, I can only imagine some of the messages you may have got. And, how did that hit you?
I don't even, in the beginning, it's very interesting. In the beginning, I remember one of the things that I was really shocked about was kind of like ethical standards. We can kind of group it into that, I'd be in the middle of a conversation with somebody and then it would just stop. And I couldn't understand, because again, mind you, I'd never seen a dating app. I didn't know how, I didn't know what the mores were, right? Like what the social norms were on there. And so I'd be, and then it would just stop. And I was like, and I would text back. I'd be like, where'd you go? We were just talking. Like, I didn't understand that people just came in and out of them, you know? And they didn't just continue the conversation. And mind you, at the time I was also, I was separated. I had a year-old. My daughter was a year old at the time. I was home. I didn't have a job. So I had nothing to do but engage in this, right? So I put a lot of time and energy into the dating app, and obviously, people who are on them know, if you're working, you don't really care. You check in with it once in a while, and so that was a big shock to me that people just like left conversations in the middle, didn't say goodbye, didn't say I'll get back to you later, all of that kinds of stuff. And I always say it's just shocking. Like I want somebody to make a skit show. Maybe you and I should do this. Make a skit show, like of people in real life having dating app conversations, because people would never act or say the things that they do on an app,
Yeah,
and they never act that way, And so that took me by surprise. And then at the time, because of, and I now understand that it was my energy that I was also giving across, but there was a lot of, hey, sexy. I mean, I pretty much got only like, hey, sexies, like across the board. A lot of sexual conversations, a lot of, people trying to get, people that were interested in sex only and that kinds of thing. But yeah, that was kind of how it was. But it was also just, I don't know, I really, in the beginning, it was really like exploring Mars. I was like, oh, what's this? And oh, who's that? And oh, maybe I can meet this one, So it was kind of, I had a lot of fun with it.
Superb. Sounds like you had a blast.
Yeah.
So when you were doing all of this, did you find actually, like, because obviously, I'm sure you hear it just as much as I do, that, I think a lot of people get down about it because they see the messages and they think that this is all they're going to get. And, did you feel that? Did you go through those emotions, that roller coaster, and thinking, God, is this all there is? Is just people being stupid and sending silly messages and ghosting and this, that, the other? Is that what you found?
Oh God, the ghosting.
Yeah.
I forgot about that. No, in the beginning, it was all about opportunity and excitement. And that is something that so while this was all happening in my life, I was also studying to be a health and life coach. And I was very self-aware of everything that was happening. And so what I really noticed, and what I also kind of, help my clients with, is it's all about mindset. Like when I went in, I was so open. I was so excited. All I saw was opportunity. And, even though I had some like bad or funny conversations, they all became kind of funny to me and like kind of fodder for like stories to tell my friends. Right. And so, and now I'm now, and kind of later on, I've experienced more of what you're talking about, kind of the jadedness, the apathy, the, oh God, here I am again, like the back, I don't know if you've seen those TikToks, but like back again,
Yes.
and you get on the app. So now I've experienced that, but I also know what it was like when I felt like there was only opportunity there. And so if you have the right mindset around it, it can be a fun and exciting place. And also, you don't take it too seriously.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that 100%. I think that's the very basis of my ethos when it comes to dating, is just not to take it too seriously. Enjoy it. Try and enjoy it as much as you can. Make sure you're having fun. Don't worry about the other person. Just make sure you're having fun in the right way, of course. But yeah, just to find ways to enjoy the process. I think that's the big thing. Right. But let's talk about your area of expertise, which is the attachment styles. Now, so for someone who has no clue about this, tell us about attachment styles. What does it mean? What is that? What does it mean? How does someone find out what their attachment styles is? What are the attachment styles? Give us the full lowdown.
Okay, it's a long one, so I'll try and make it quick. I can't believe you haven't had this on your podcast. I was sure that by now you would have talked about this, just because it's become such like pop, kinds of pop psychology, or if you will. But what's important to say about it is it's not by any means pop psychology. It's a really big area of psychology, and it's been studied over and over and over. So it's very tested and very tried and true. So your attachment style is basically how you learn to relate to the world before you could speak, how you learn to relate to people and thus to the world before you could speak. And you learn that from your caretakers. And the way that your caretakers treated you in those early stages basically dictates your attachment style. And if your caretakers were, and there's so much more to this, but I'm going to just make it quick. So, can give you a broad overview, but if your caretakers were very consistent with emotionally attuning to you, which means that they cared about your emotions, they let you have your emotions, they would help you repair your emotions, that would have led to a secure attachment style. If your parents were or caretakers were inconsistent with the emotional attunement, sometimes they were available to give it to you, sometimes they weren't. Maybe you got passed around to grandparents. I did, for example. My parents were immigrants, right? So I was constantly being passed around because my parents were working. You would develop an anxious attachment style. And if your parents were neglectful of your emotions, then and that would happen, maybe your parents were there all the time, but they just weren't connected with their own emotions, so they didn't know how to show you to be. Or maybe the cry it out method is actually something that has led to, I don't know if you're familiar with the cry it out method.
Yeah, I've heard of it. Yeah. But
like,
anyone else, please explain it as well. Why not?
When you let babies cry it out and learn, it's supposed to help them learn to self-soothe. But what you're actually doing is not attuning or attending to the child's child's needs. And so it's not exactly healthy. But anyway, that might lead to a avoidant attachment style. And then you have your fearful avoidant attachment style, which happens when there's actually some sort of real abuse or chaos in the house. So that would be like emotional, mental, sexual abuse, possibly that happens in childhood, or some sort of big break, like maybe a parent died, or something really intense happened in childhood that would lead to a fearful avoidant. And so what happens is you get these attachment styles at a really young age. And then as an adult, we don't even, because we're so young, we don't even have our conscious mind's not online yet, right? Your conscious mind comes online when you start to learn language. And so your attachment style is already primed, it's already there. And as adults, we are actually functioning and relating to the world from our attachment style before our thinking mind comes online. So when I was explaining that, I understood that I was making mistakes, but I couldn't stop myself from making them. My conscious mind understood that I was making them, but my subconscious needed to make that mistake because it's so almost like part of my DNA to do that thing. And so that's how people function. And so in dating, what that looks like, right? Because that's like the more fun and applicable points of this is your secure person is, the person that kind of everybody should date, but may sometimes seem boring to people that have an insecure attachment style. They're kind of like very consistent. They'll call, they'll text, they'll respond, they'll do all the things that like people are supposed to do. And they may even get friend zoned a lot of the time, although they're probably the ones that are the healthiest people to be in a relationship with. Your anxious people are the ones that come across or may come across as needy or crazy, overly emotional, need a lot of attention, get very frustrated when they're not getting the type of attention they want. can be kind of manipulative in trying to get attention, but like not very obviously manipulative, just, trying to do things like even people pleasing, even like, oh, let me take care of that for you. Let me help you with that, just so that they can keep relationship in their life kind of thing. The avoidant style is the type that is great with, generally like can be good with people, might have a lot of friends, typically very smart, typically very goal oriented, but doesn't keep relationship in their life for very long, or doesn't get very deep in relationships. So they tend to be like the playboy, the 3-monther relationship type, and very easily walk away from relationship. Just like they're like, I'm done, bye, shut it down. Most likely to ghost, but not always. And then your fearful avoidant is the hot and cold type. The type that kind of like seems to really be into it at first, and then they pull away when the other person is like, oh yeah, like, let's get into this. And then they're like, too much. Because they're also, from childhood, they're afraid of love, right? What they learned was that love can't be trusted because they'll get hurt. And so it's a very hot and cold kind of relationship.
Wow, so a lot to delve in there as well. By the way, for anyone who doesn't know their attachment style, wants to know more, I believe you've got a test on your Instagram, right? In your bio link, so that they can go and have a test. How long does it take for that test, for them to someone to take that test?
3 minutes.
3 minutes. Shall I do it actually? Because I let's do a live one, because I've never actually done it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Believe it or not, let's do it. I'm ready to do this. Let me just go on the browser and search you on Insta. Oh, there you go. Actually, it's come up on your website anyway. So redo.love is her website. Okay, cool. Take the quiz. Here we go. Let's do it live. I've never actually done my attachment style at all. So let me do it. Let me put my name in.
You better come out secure. If you don't, my test
This will be interesting, actually. A live attachment style quiz. Okay. Okay.
Let's see. That's www.redo.love.
So it's come up as app.involveme.redo.love, that one. I think that's when you get to the quiz anyway, but
exactly,
redo.love. Gotcha.
This is exciting. Nobody's ever done this.
I'm doing it relatively quickly without giving it too much thought, but it's quite interesting, some of these. Like as soon as you see
okay. I thought you were going to read the questions out loud.
Oh, yeah, let's do it, actually. Yeah, that's a good point, actually. Right, so I'm going to go through this. Right? So what is your attachment style? So question 1, I feel naturally comfortable and safe expressing my feelings and needs to partners and romantic interests. I'm not going to tell my answers yet. Let's see what it comes up as.
Right. Okay.
Question 2, I get annoyed when my romantic partners infringe on my personal free time. Question 3, I'm afraid to really be seen by my partner because they may not like what they see. Question 4, I want to be close with my partner but feel angry at my partner at the same time. I know my partner and I can reach a healthy resolution even if we get worked up during an argument. I've just answered that one. I constantly want to be close to my partner or even my crush. I frequently feel out of touch with my emotions. When I reach a certain level of intimacy, question 8, this is when I reach a certain level of intimacy with my partner, I sometimes experience inexplicable fear. I'm good at setting boundaries without pushing people away. That's question 9. Question 10, if someone I've been dating becomes distant or cold, I often take it personally and feel like I did something wrong. I'll answer that one. Actually, I think that was probably when I was dating. I'd say that's an often thing, but I learned to kind of get it under control and not take it so personally. Question 11, when I feel hurt by a partner, I push them away. Let me answer that one. Question 12, I know that I'm worthy of a loving and healthy relationship, definitely. I'm often hot and cold in relationships, sometimes desperately wanting connection, but getting uncomfortable when it gets too close. My question 14, my independence is more important to me than my relationships. Question 15, I often worry that my partner will stop loving me or seem to have concerns they will leave for one reason or another. Question 16, when my partner is upset, I naturally know how to help him or her calm down. Question 17, I tend to experience a lot of emotional turbulence in romantic relationships. Question 18, I hate feeling that other people depend on me. I hate feeling that other people depend on me. Right, okay. Question 19, I think about my relationships almost all the time. Question 20, I am not good at setting boundaries until I'm really angry, and then they can be very cold. Sorry, a big one. I'm not good at setting boundaries until I'm really angry, and then they can be very cold. That one is, I'd say rarely now. Yay, secure attachment style. I genuinely as honest as I possibly could be in that. So, which is good to know. So I think my wife would say the same thing as well. She would kind of.
The other thing to know is that being a secure relationship, whatever attachment style you are, if you have a secure relationship that's healthy, you will develop a secure attachment style within that relationship. So
very good.
Even if you, your attachment styles can change over time. They can change over circumstances that happen in life. They aren't necessarily like fixed from childhood, although everybody does have a primary attachment style. But, you know, a lot of people that, let's say they were secure, they were married, they had a wonderful relationship, they get divorced, and then they tend to experience a new attachment style because like it's a big life change, and people get out into the dating market and they're like a fish out of water, and they can either get avoidant and be afraid of relationship kind of thing, or they can get very anxious in relationship, always being worried whether the relationship is going to stay. So it's not abnormal to kind of change. So don't get divorced.
It's interesting, like hearing all the stuff you're saying. I'm just totally messed up my hair. There we go. There you go. That's better. It's interesting hearing all the stuff that you're saying, actually, because like now comparing that to all the people I speak to in the chat, and especially the repeating challenges. You know, when someone comes to me and says, I always seem to attract the bad boy. I always seem to attract the person who doesn't know how to take action or plan a date, or I always seem to attract the woman who's only interested in finding out how much I earn, or I always seem to only attract, you know, insert whatever you want there. And, you know, they're constantly repeating the same patterns. And no matter how hard they try and change it, or have tried to change it up until that point, they always seem to find themselves stuck in that same loop. They can't seem to break it. So this sounds a very apt way of looking into what's caused the initial thing that's causing this to happen as well. Because I personally don't practice this, as in I don't use it as part of my coaching tool set, but it's interesting to see that, because actually now I can relate it a lot more to a lot of the stuff I'm seeing as well, which is incredible. And I think even just taking that quiz, you know, it will make people think, and it will be like, it probably will spark something inside of them, will make them reflect a little bit and think, holy crap, you know, like this explains a lot.
Right. It really, that's the thing. It really does. And I'm glad that you said that, because it's the pattern that if you have a pattern in dating it, like if you have these regular problems, like I'm always attracted to the bad boy, or I'm always attracted to somebody unavailable, or I can't seem to hold on to a relationship for more than like 3 months, or I get really like, I don't like anybody after 3 months, that kind of thing. Then, you know, it's an attachment style, and related subconscious issues that pattern's about. We don't have patterns for no reason. We have patterns so that they can tell us something about ourselves. And if you have a pattern and you are just like, oh, well, this is just how things are, then you're really limiting yourself and really getting to know yourself, because like that's the bigger thing. And the crazy thing about the attachment style conversation is, like, sometimes it feels, when I talk to people and they've never heard about it, they feel like I'm psychic or something. Like, how did you know? You know, because it's almost so formulaic that if you have this attachment style, this is going to be your patterns. This is going to be how you act in relationship, and vice versa. If you tell me about your relationship, I can tell you pretty much about some stuff that happened in your childhood, or probably something that sounds familiar. And so that to me is what is wild and amazing about it. Because like I said, it's kind of like, it's like a life map. It's like a roadmap to why you've made the choices you have, why you attract the people you attract, why you're interested in them even.
Yeah. And I was going to say as well that based on everything you've said up until now, I mean, that everything you just said makes so much sense. And then what I wanted to touch on was, like, what does someone do when someone's done the test and they have an idea of what their attachment style is? What do they do then? What does someone do next when they find out what their attachment style is? Like, where do they go from there? Like, you know, what's the process for them? How can they understand what it means for them and what it is that they need to do then next?
They call me immediately, and then we work together. Yes, that's absolutely an option. And there's a ton of information on the internet at this point about this stuff. I do a program which I'm kind of replanning, but called Relearn to Date Based on Your Attachment Style, which is a free webinar that I'll be doing very soon. So you can tap into my links in bio or just DM me to make it easier. And I basically, you know, give a full detailed explanation of how this happens, why this happens, and, you know, what you can do about it. But it's really a process of learning about yourself, your triggers, your needs, your coping mechanisms, because that's really what this lays out. It lays out for you, I'm a person who needs more space, or I'm a person who likes to be closer to a partner and see a partner quite often, or speak to a partner quite often. And just knowing that about yourself, and then, because what happens, you know, we go into the dating market, we don't know anything about ourselves, our needs, our triggers. We're not even thinking about these things, right? And then we get where we go on a date with somebody, date's great. Then there's that space in between the next date. And for me, what was happening was I was like, oh, this is great. I can't wait to talk to him again. I can't wait to text, with him and be in communication. And then he would not be in communication for a week. So that week I was upset, disappointed, feeling like I did something wrong, feeling like there was something wrong with me because he's not texting me back or like engaging. And then a week or so later, he's like, hey, let's go out again. Like everything is normal. And I've just gone through this whole emotional roller coaster of having to get over the fact that he didn't want to talk to me and that he doesn't like me anymore. And I'm, there's something wrong with me. And that's kind of a standard normal thing that happens in dating, right? I'm sure many people come to you with that type of thing that right?
Yeah, all the time.
Right. And so when you understand that you have an anxious attachment style, you're a person that needs more communication. He may have an avoidant attachment style, and he does not need a lot of communication. Doesn't mean he's not interested, just means he's a person that doesn't need a lot of communication in between dates. And then you're like, oh, well, we just have different needs, and you can either grow into accepting that, or you can say, no, I know what I need. That doesn't work for me. And this relationship isn't going to work,
Yeah. So actually based on that, right? So what you just said, that's a great example there, was that, and that thing, what you said as well, the whole, when you go into that emotional roller coaster, like, is there something wrong with me? That's a big one. That's a massive one. Do you find as well, like, that you get people who are in that scenario? Now, this is an interesting one. So if you get people who are in that scenario, so they prefer a lot more communication. But the other thing I get on the other flip side is that they prefer communication, but then they find themselves unattractive to the ones who communicate a lot.
Okay, so I want to say one thing before that. Insecure attachment styles will take rejection or perceived rejection to mean something about themselves. Okay, secure people won't do that, right? So for a secure person in that situation, they to themselves, oh, there's wrong with me. Why didn't he text me back? They'll just think like he's busy. He texts me back. Oh, look, he popped up again a week later. Yeah, sure, I'll go out with him again. We had fun, right? But this insecure attachment styles make it mean something about themselves, right? And then, I'm sorry, tell me the question again.
Yeah, so you've got someone exactly that scenario, but actually when they come across someone who does then communicate a lot, the attraction sort of just dissipates.
Okay, so now we can get into the anxious avoidant loop, and I'll explain that. But so that typically happens that's when I was saying the secure person can feel boring to the insecure attachment style, because the insecure attachment style in one way or another is used to some form of inconsistency or chaos in relationship from childhood. And so when somebody's consistent and responsive and they don't understand that to be love. Their subconscious isn't primed to understand that as love. They friend zone that person, right? Or they're not interested in that person because it's not hitting on their subconscious memory of what love means. And so what happens very typically, right, in your toxic relationships, right, where people are like, he's my soulmate, my twin flame, I'm so in love, and they romanticize. And the second we saw each other, I just knew, and all this kind of stuff. Well, what's really happening is that, and that's why I say chemistry is the idea of, I just want that chemistry with somebody. It's such a dangerous trap, right?
Yeah, that's what I say all the time. So true.
And so for two secure people meeting that have that chemistry, what that's really saying is that their subconscious is seeing in each other healthy upbringing and communication, and is remembering the familiarity of that, right, for two secure people. So in fact, that is healthy when two secure people have chemistry. But most of us are running around with an insecure attachment style. And what that subconscious memory is actually a trauma bond between the two insecure attachment styles. And so typically it's called the anxious avoidant loop, or the anxious avoidant trap, where the anxious person who associates love with inconsistency, right? The high low. Like my parent, I'm going to use myself as an example because it's easier. My parents were immigrants. When they were wonderful, they were loving, did all the thing, but they couldn't always be around, right? So there was inconsistency. And so the pattern is they're here, they're gone, they're here, they're gone, they're here, they're gone. So what does the avoidant person offer the anxious person? They're great date, I don't need to speak for a week. Great date, I don't need to speak to you for a week. So that pattern, my subconscious recognizes that pattern as love. And immediately that's chemistry, but that's a very unhealthy thing. And especially with the avoidant person, for the avoidant person, typically they fall for the anxious person because they see in them something that they can't access. They see a lot of emotion. They see the avoidant person has shut down their emotional centers a long time ago. But they still want love. They just don't know how to express that because it's so deeply buried inside. And so they become attracted to the anxious person too, but they can't handle too much. They need space for their nervous system to get back to a level where they can then handle all that emotion again. And so these two get involved. They have completely different needs, completely different coping mechanisms, and they love each other. They have this strong feeling for each other, but they can't make it work because they're completely blind to this conversation and need different things and cope in completely different ways. And there's every toxic relationship you've ever heard of.
Yeah, I get that. I think that's a fascinating element of it, and that's a great way to explain it as well. So that because I come across this all the time. So again, it's a new way for me to look at this as well, which is fantastic. It's incredible. So talk us through then what you would do then when you've got someone of whichever way. Let's use that as an example, or a personal case study of yours from any of your clients, without divulging too much
Usually
identity.
me.
Unless tell us, if it's someone famous, that'd be great. But no, where you find someone who's in this pattern and what you do to help them break it. What can people do, even if they've just decided I'm going to do it by myself, I'm going to take the test, and okay, now I know what I am. What do I need to do about it? What can I do about it?
So it depends like which side you're coming from, right? The avoidant and the anxious are completely opposite. And what I failed to mention earlier is that the fearful avoidant is often also called, the style is also called disorganized. And what that means is that they express the anxious side and the avoidant side. So they have both parts inside of them. And so it depends what side you're coming from. Because the needs and coping mechanisms are very different, you also need different ways of coping. So for the anxious person, what's really at the core wounds for the anxious person typically is abandonment issues. Because of that inconsistent love, they always felt like they could be abandoned at any second, and they're constantly trying to hold on to love, in whatever way they can figure out. And under that, and what happens as a result of that is that relationship with people, with partners especially, is what validates them as human beings. So that if they're not in relationship, or if there isn't some hope of relationship on the table, they don't feel like they have a sense of self, or their self-worth is very, very low. And so the anxious people, need to work on the relationship with themselves. The avoidant person, who is very quick to push away relationship, needs to deal with learn, and their core wounds is typically kind of, they're afraid of rejection because they were rejected so early on, or they felt rejected so early on. They have abandonment issues too, but it's much deeper, much more unconscious even than subconscious. And that plays out within themselves. Like they can't, they abandon their own emotions. And so anyway, the avoidant person needs to work on getting comfortable with intimacy most of the time. And with avoidance, depending on how on the spectrum, how avoidant they are, because there is a spectrum of this, they need to take really little steps, become intimate in places where they're comfortable, maybe with friends, maybe with family members, so that they can build into learning how to accept and be in intimacy with the partner, and also knowing and understanding their limitations, because if you're very avoidant, you're always going to need extra space, and that's okay as long as you can learn to communicate that. And that's a big part of all of this too, right? Like the communication side, both on the anxious side and and on the avoidance side. Communication and accountability, I think, are really big aspects of this, of the work.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. And have you had, like, when you work with people who've been in, dealing with those kinds of particular attachment styles, have you found you've had people who've had like those epiphanies, those breakthroughs, and have been able to then, kind of heal that, should we say, rather than fix anything, but heal that, so that they can actually then move on and have healthy relationships?
Totally. I've had clients come to me a lot of times, not just clients come to me a lot of times, especially on the anxious side, and they'll say something like, I'm in this toxic relationship. I know you're going to tell me to block him, but blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I'm not going to tell you to block him. I would never tell. Why would I tell you to block him? You'll unblock him the second you feel like, again, it's that subconscious compulsion thing, right? The second you feel like it, you're going to do it anyway. So no, I'm not going to tell you to do that. And then what is like so beautiful to me, and it really, like, I get like chills even when I think about it, is that by the time our work together is over, they forget a lot of times to tell me that they blocked the guy. Like, it's become such like a transformation that they just block him because they feel like it, and they don't even care to talk about it because it's no longer what's important in their life. Their relationship with self becomes so much more of their focus that this external this external thing just becomes like an annoyance rather than their life focus, which it was kind of up until the point where they came to me. So yeah. So I've seen it, I've done it. I've personally healed my own attachment style as much as possible. Although, I want to say too, so the path is called, like, officially, like from the book, it's called Earn Secure. And we should mention the official first book called Attached by Amir Levine, because that's the book that really brought this out to the forefront. And I think they were the people that actually did the studies, like, for how this like translates in adult love relationship. While I love the book because it brought this out, I think it's I think it's quite limited in all aspects, but an amazing, like, everybody should read it kind of thing as a primer. And I was getting to something, I think. Healing, I don't know, something about healing the attachment style. I forgot where I was going. Sorry.
I have that effect on people as well. They see this handsome dude on the other side, they tend to forget
that smile.
Yeah, exactly. No, what about you? So obviously you're actively in the dating game right now as well. So if there were to be someone who saw you and thought, wow, what would they have to do to, what type of character what would they have to do to win you over? What kind of things would you find attractive? What qualities do you like? What values do you find are in line with yours?
So I did remember what I wanted to say, and it fits perfectly into this. So moving towards security, right? The goal is for everybody to feel more secure, right? And to move towards a more secure attachment style, but really it's just to feel more secure inside. And what I want to say about it is, I think that there is kind of this incorrect thinking that moving towards security means that you don't experience your attachment feelings anymore. It doesn't mean that you don't. It just means that you've learned tools to cope with them, that you are more able to deal with your own emotions, and that you can take accountability for it and communicate about it. It's not to say that it doesn't exist anymore. And I'm glad that you asked that as a follow-up question, because I find that every time, like being single and going through a relationship, I find that because I've gotten really good at the dating part, like, it's been a while, I know how to deal with my emotions in the early stages of dating. I don't get too attached. I now have patience, which I didn't have before, and all this kinds of stuff. But I find when I get to a new plateau in relationship that I haven't hit before, my attachment stuff comes up in a way that feels like, again, like all the way back to the beginning. And so there's also like a recognition around understanding that when in a new circumstance, or when in a new environment that I haven't been in a long time, that those feelings might come up again. So I did want to say that because I think it's kind of an important point to this conversation. But what resonates with me is people that are consistent. I mean, consistency is really, and it doesn't mean that they have to be calling me every day, 6 times a day kind of thing. It just means that they have to be consistent between their words and their behavior, towards me. Kindness is a really big deal. And that for me shows up as people who are willing to make an effort, and who, and then also people who can take feedback well. I think that is a really important thing. One thing that comes up a lot, and I think this is the danger of this attachment style stuff, is a lot of people are really willing to get involved in a couple of months of relationship. And they're really just, they're I'm in love, this is it, this is great. And until you see the other person triggered in a real way, you have no idea what this person is really like, And those initial arguments you have, or disagreements maybe you have early on, they're not a reflection of a person being triggered. That person is still on their best behavior. You too. I mean, we're all kind of in those early stages, still on our best behavior, still willing to make something work because there's the right amount of feeling, the right amount of chemistry maybe that's going on. But until you see somebody really triggered, you don't really know who the person is. So for me, more than a characteristic, it's getting to a place with a person where I can see how they really act when they're emotionally triggered.
Yeah, I put up one of those quotes the other day. If you really want to know what someone is like, give them slow internet. Yeah, yeah, because you put up some great ones as well, and I love it. And
I think I quoted that on another podcast. I have to tell you,
yeah, and then
it was a Will Ferrell quote.
Yeah, and I think there's who is it? There's the other one, Doing Relationships Right. She puts up some great ones as well, which I think are fantastic. But it's so true. Like, I think that really does sum it up well. And it's interesting because I say that to people as well. I say, like, it usually takes about 3 months before you get a real glimpse of who that. I mean, there's no fixed rule, but before you get a really good glimpse of what that person is. I don't know if I ever told you this, but I remember when my wife and I had our third date. Where you were talking about consistency as well, she did that thing, we were just talking. I was being my usual gregarious bravado self, talking as if I'm the shit, right? As I usually do. She kind of just went, oh, I was like, what's that? She goes, listen, my ears are broken. Yeah, if you want to really prove to me, show me, and I love that. And that's one of the things that made me more attracted to her, because I was like, actually, that's quite cool, and I like that. And then one of the bit you talked about as well, triggering as well, it's interesting as well. My wife and I are both very secure people, so we're both pretty chilled out. We are, but I don't really get pissed off or angry that often. It does, I mean, don't get me wrong, it happens. Someone parks in front of my driveway, I turn into the Hulk, right? So I have my moments. But what was really interesting for me and my wife was when we got our puppy last year. This time last year, we got our puppy. And we gradually started to train him and everything. That really tested our relationship, actually, because we both had different ideas about how to train him, and because he's a super intelligent puppy, and he knows his own mind. And if he doesn't want to do something, he's literally like, "Fuck you, I don't give a shit," kind of thing, right? And so he's very chilled out. He's a lot older now. He's very chilled out now. But that tested us both, and it made us test each other really heavily. And it brought out sides of each other which we hadn't seen before, and obviously in lockdown as well. And so that put us to the test that we hadn't been tested before, but we came out even better on the other side. And I think that's a real testament to a relationship. If you can go through something like that and you come out stronger, it doesn't leave a scar, but actually makes you even closer. That's a real good indicator you're on you're in a good, healthy relationship, I think.
Yeah, totally. And, you just saying that, I think early on in dating, we tend to kind of go out, maybe do some not really do enough activity together. Maybe going to dinner, maybe you're getting drinks, maybe you're sleeping together, maybe you're watching Netflix, and you're not necessarily kind of working together. And any type of team building exercises you can kind of do are going to help to show you, whether this partner, whether you can work with this partner. And I think ultimately, I actually heard this as a statistic, and I'm really bad about keeping the right names of people who do the studies, but that the major thing that keeps relationships together is whether you can work through conflict together. That's the main thing that will keep relationships together, that and attunement. So it's funny because I'm sure you're familiar with the Gottmans, right? Yeah. Okay. So they have the study that says that they could predict divorce in couples 92% of the time based on how the couples are what they called paying attention to each other in the little moments. Somebody says something that is kind of not important. Oh, look at that cloud, and the partner just kind of doesn't pay attention because he's working or whatever's going on. And but that is actually what that is. If you do that properly, that's attunement. That's emotional attunement, right? And that is the same thing that the child requires in attachment style in order to have a secure attachment style. So the more you pay attention to these small little seemingly unimportant details about your partner, or where they're trying to bid for attention is, the psychological term for it. Their bids for attention, the more likely you are to have a secure and long-lasting relationship.
Yeah, I don't know if you heard this, but I do a little thing on my radio show every week, and it's called the Couples Challenge, right? So I just get the couples on, and they have to see how well they know each other through 5 questions. It's just a bit of fun.
Okay.
And I had my uncle and auntie on a few weeks ago, about 4 weeks ago now, and they'd been married, and I saw them the other day. They've been married for 43, coming up to 43 years, I think. And they're still both very young at heart, and they actually did really well in the quiz. They actually did really, really well. But I look to them and I think, wow, that's a really good example right there of what it means to be, as you said, attuned, right? And those little things make such a difference. And you triggered a little story in me there as well. I remember asking someone, this is a long time ago, a friend of mine, she's married now, and I'm pretty sure it was about the guy that she's married to. But I just asked her the question. I said, what is like, paraphrasing a little bit now, but what made you like really know you or fall in love with him, or or really fond memory or something like that. And I remember when she said to me, she goes, one day we were just out for a walk. We were somewhere where it was a nice view, and it was just, he just held my hand in that moment. And it's like it's those little things, the biggest difference in the relationships. And I think that's just so powerful. Like, everyone thinks it's about the grand gestures, and the way I teach dating, I do say, look, personally, I mean, this is my opinion, but a first date should be something very simple, like a walk in the park or a coffee. I really don't think you should go grand gesture first date. That's just not my style. I've never really seen anything great come out of grand gestures, if I'm perfectly honest. But I think it's the small things, when you create moments in that, even in that first date, that are, a bit more out there, then, those are going to stick. Those are the things that you're going to actually look back and remember. So I think those are quite powerful, but those little things are just so important.
Yeah, I mean, they're so important, and especially when you're in relationship for a long time, because those are the things that fall away the quickest, right? To your point, a lot of people, in the early stages of dating, they're like, I have to make an effort, I have to try, I have to, so they do these grand gestures, they do these things, and then you can't keep up with those things. Yeah. Those aren't realistic. You can't stay consistent with those things. But deep into a relationship, 10 years, if your husband's walking by you and like cupping the small of your back as you're washing dishes, it is like, you kind of get this like feeling, and it triggers this kind of memory, again, this like subconscious thing that like, he still cares, he's still interested. But oftentimes you just get so bored of each other, you're just kind of like not even paying attention, and just running to do something else. So do the little things. I always say that it's the little things. I mean, it's the simplest statement, but the hardest to, I think, keep up with and do sometimes if you're not aware.
Yeah, 100%. So we'll round off in a minute, but a couple of important questions for you. First off, I asked Daniel this the other day as well. I thought it's a really cool question. If you were going to invent a dating app, what feature that is not currently out there would you add into it?
I think there's all these new dating apps that are being developed and coming out, and I think we get to know a little bit about them before kinds of the public does. So there's a lot coming out that I think is working. I want to say it's XOXO. I don't know if you're familiar, but
no, it must be a really new one.
Yeah, they're coming out with like a mindfulness platform where people can meet. And so it's mindfulness platform. There's coaches that give talks constantly, and there's that whole section. And then separately from that, there's like a singles meet kinds of section where people that are doing the work, people that are kind of self-reflective and interested in not only mindfulness, but all versions and topics around it, can meet each other. I think that's all kinds of video related, which I also think is really important these days, because I think everybody is so sick of the apps. They're so sick of just swiping, seeing a picture, not knowing anything. So I think I would make video apps like the only way to put up a profile. Like I wouldn't even allow for pictures. It would just have to be video. And then video chat, it would be video to meet until you guys meet. Because there's none of that unethical behavior, shall we say, right? If you're on video talking to somebody, all of that kinds of stuff falls away, and there's only two people, how they actually look, right? So there's no catfishing, and personality that's coming across. So that would be my, my hope for the future of dating apps.
Yeah, I like that, and I actually, I'm surprised you didn't say it. I thought you were going to say that a dating app that should have the attachment styles quiz as you sign up, and then you get.
But then, what would I do?
Well, people still need healing from it, right? But at least it matches them accordingly. So.
Well, that kind of falls, I think, into the mindfulness app, right, where people would, ideally know it already.
Yeah, I love that though. I think that's a really good idea, and I agree with that. Like I've always said that if I was going to do an app, one of the things it would do is switch off messaging at a certain point, and it would come up with a prompt reminding you, get off Messenger, now is the time for a call. If you want to take this further, have a call or have a video call, within the app. And I think that's I personally as well, I didn't mind messaging. I quite enjoyed it, but I just didn't do it for that long. It would just be usually a few messages back and forth. Hey, give me your number. Let's actually talk more. And 99% of the time, it just worked. So I just carried on doing it. And the same happened with my wife. I like the way I coach people. I say to people like, it's an arbitrary goal, but it's still a goal. Like, was to get someone's number within about 15 minutes and speak to them on the phone. And I got my wife's number within 5 minutes, and we arranged our first date within 2 days. And I was just a fast mover, and that's the way it worked for me. And it worked like a charm. So
and sometimes that works, and then sometimes it falls on its face, and then people get really kind of dejected, don't want to go back to it. So it really depends, and that's why you have to be open, and you have to know that just because one time doesn't work, the next time might.
Yeah, exactly. Right. You never know. And so I wanted to say, obviously, a massive thank you for being a guest, because you've actually really educated me today as well. I'm definitely going to go and get that book on Audible and listen to it. And I was going to ask, yes, of course, right. So where can people find you? Where can they take this quiz? And if they've got any more questions, or they want to come to you for any of their attachment style coaching, where can they reach out to you?
I am mostly on Instagram at redo.love. Name is proper written here, so it's at redo REDO.love on Instagram, and my website is the same. It's www.redo.love. So you can find me on both those places. Simple and easy. I do have a Facebook page, but I'm not on Facebook as much as I am on Instagram. So if you actually want to reach me, Instagram, please.
That is the place to be. I love it. Well, I wanted to say a huge thank you for being on the podcast. It's a pleasure having you finally. Yay.
Hey, I'm so glad I got to do this, and I'm glad I got to see you and reconnect with you, because
Yeah, me too. Absolutely as well. So what happens now is if you're watching this live, do not worry if you missed any. The audio will be uploaded to all the major podcast platforms by tomorrow. And of course, you can always watch the replay if you want to as well. You can listen to it on your journey to work or whatever it might be. And yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure. Honestly, I've really enjoyed talking to you today, and I've learned so much as well. So it's real today. So once again, you've been listening to the Feel Inspired. I can't get my words out today. And the Feel Inspired podcast. My name is Amit Sodha. This was Flora Ong. You can find her on Instagram at redo.love. And I just wanted to say one more time, thank you very much for being here as well.
Thank you.
All right, stay on the line while I end the broadcast. Bye, everyone.
Hey.
And we're out.